Jenna Rosher is the cinematographer for Billie Eilish. The world's a little blurry. I'm at Nobler Gold Derby, and I wanted to ask you, Jenna, was it important to you to not have too many blurry camera shots in the film?
I watched the film last night on a big screen. There are a few blurry ones, but listen, it's funny. There's a scene where I'm going to call it out because you know what? We're not perfect. And when we're shooting verite, I don't have a focus puller. I'm pulling focus. I'm running exposure. I'm framing. I'm also listening to the story. It's a lot, as any verite cinematographer would attest. And I'm not saying it to like a poor me. It's my choice. I love it. It's just that there's moments where I think, you've shot for hours and hours and hours, and I think the world was starting to become a little blurry for me too. Because like after Coachella, she's in a really bad state. She's really not pleased with the show, and she's got some personal things going on. And I noticed in the elevator, it's a little blurry. But to me, what sort of works is that I feel like that might be the moment in the whole film that really reflects the title, because I think the world was a little blurry for Billie in that moment. And I was like, okay, I can accept it. I'm okay with it being slightly out of focus because her world was out of focus. So yeah, gotta forgive yourself for those moments. It's more about the content, but luckily we're pretty good overall. Most things are in focus. So I'm thankful for that.
Why don't you can title the film that and not have a single blurry shot in the whole film?
Yeah, I mean, but the title is really fitting for Billie's life for that period of time that we captured her. It would definitely not apply to her life now, as far as I can see. She really knows what she wants now. She's very focused, and she's grown up a lot. She's been through a lot. She's been through more things than most people her age. So, but I think at that period of time, we followed her during a really unique moment of her really coming from a place of, yes, having a fan base, but literally just catapulting into fame at such a fast pace, and having to manage that. And I think also just trying to be a teenager. And so that's what I think I love about the movie ultimately, is it's not just a story about this unbelievable artist. It's also a story about a family, and about a person, a coming of age story, and about a person navigating that time of your life that I think is relatable to all of us, what it was like to navigate your teen years. It's tough,
As a cinematographer, like capturing a film like this where sort of life and events are unfolding in front of you, what were you most sort of surprised by, or you sort of almost couldn't believe you were capturing as it was happening?
I think every day we worked on this movie, we would walk away thinking, oh my gosh, there were multiple viable scenes for this film, and I would really have to attribute that to Billie and her family. I mean, they're uniquely available and open, and I will say just that Billie's willingness to be vulnerable is not just inspiring and refreshing and like creatively, motivating for anyone, any filmmaker, but it was also it made the process of capturing her life really just powerful. I mean, that's what you ultimately want, is access. When you're making a documentary, you want people to be on board with the fact that you're there, and she was very much on board. And it wasn't just about being on board for the moments that were like, great, everything's great. It was like, no, I'm on board for you to see the moments that aren't so great in my life. And that's hard to find with people who are in the public eye, people who are famous. It's showing that vulnerability is a risk for them to some degree. And she saw the opportunity to show the world, her fans, people who even weren't familiar with her, like, this is what it means to be a young artist on the rise, but also like navigating just life simultaneously and going through the sort of the bumpy road of that ladder to fame. You know, it's not smooth. It's tough. It's really tough.
Did you get a sense that like she was feeling like more comfortable with sort of exposing that vulnerability as the film went on, and as she got more comfortable with you guys and cameras being around her and things, or was it constant? Like what?
I think that it's trust, you know, the real
Mm,
basis of what the work we do is based on trust. It's based
mm,
on a trust that's there's a feeling of it and it grows. It's
mm,
not just all there in the beginning, you know, it
mm,
takes time to nurture. And I think that's what happened in the case of Billie, you know, in terms of what we captured and the elements that were there were based on an investment in trust. And I think, you know, for doing this work, you have to remember you're going into someone's life, you know, you're going
mm,
into someone's home. It's it's really critical to like be able to know the cues, you know, when to back off, when to leave them alone. I'm not there to, you know, shoot things that she doesn't want me to film. If there's private moments that she sort of like needs a moment, then I'm going to back off and
mm,
sit and stand by. It's fine. You know, we're not there to uncover every moment of her life. We were fortunate enough to capture moments though that I think really reflect that year. You know, we
mm.
weren't sleeping at her house, you know, but her openness and her willingness to let us in is how we were able to you know, to take everything that we had captured, and ultimately the editorial team, Lindsay Utz and you know, Greg Fitton and RJ, to take those moments and then, you know, to build this beautiful assembly of scenes. Um, and so it really is rooted in trust, and it takes time, but I felt like she was pretty much on board from the beginning.
Mm. How do you as a cinematographer approach a project like this, which is made up of concerts and sort of scenes where I think it's like almost filmed with like an iPhone or an iPad in a room, and like or a brother's room more often than hers, and also just I would imagine more traditional cinema verite shots and scenes.
Yeah, so there's different sort of elements that make up this movie. There is a genius documentarian in Billie's mom, Maggie, who knew early on that she knew that there was something to capture early on. And so when you see the movie, you see a lot of archive in the beginning.
Mm,
And it was not filmed by me, that was filmed by Maggie. Oftentimes Maggie would just like plant a GoPro in Phineas's bedroom, and they
mm,
would be recording all day, and she'd go in and probably change her batteries and cars and come back out. But she captured thousands of hours of them. And also back when they were kids, there was an unbelievable amount of
mm,
archive. And so we had an amazing archive story producer named Jonathan Ruan. So he had to go through hours and hours and hours. And also he was watching a lot of the footage we were shooting and just having to organize all of this, you know. And that was a lot of work. I can only imagine. But then when we set out to film, it was very clear that, okay, we're coming in as a film crew. This is different than
mm,
Mom. But we also decided to make it the crew, you know, RJ was pretty adamant about keeping the crew really small, and
mm,
small meaning myself, our sound operator, Jay Kim, and also RJ. And that was it. Because, you know, we're going into their home. We're not going to have a whole team of people there, you know,
mm,
that don't need to be there. Really, just whoever needed to be there was there. And with regards to the concerts, we chose several shows that we decided to have multiple cameras. So we had operators
mm,
operating, you know, anywhere from 3 to 5 cameras, depending on the show.
mm,
And I was always on stage with Billie because I knew her, and I knew her shows very well. I knew the playlist very well. I knew where she was going to be. So we had kind of had established somewhat of a dance, for me to be there on stage with her. And that's sort of the result. And then there were instances where I would just film shows by just me by myself. And the beauty of those was, one camera can't capture different angles of a show. So RJ gave me some of the best direction I could ever have with regards to that, which was just sit and be with Billie. Just hunker down, find a frame, and stick with it. And that's what we'll use. We won't try and intercut it with different angles or anything, or, just sit with her. And it was a blessing, because that's how I was able to feel the intimacy of her music and really kind of go under her spell through the camera.
Was it a challenge to stay focused when you're up on stage with her and you got the crowd there, and just I imagine that's just unreal.
You know what? The camera's a beautiful tool to hide behind. When the camera's in front of my face, I don't really pay attention to anybody else. I don't really, it doesn't bother me too much. I'm just sort of this anonymous person holding this machinery and doing my job, and in other instances in my career and my work, it's been something that's been somewhat of a guard, to films that are kind of intense material. I felt like that the camera kind of provided a job for me to do, and also like a kind of somewhat of an emotional barricade.
Now, you said that Billie's mum just has this great sort of sense of sort of filmmaking, even of wanting to capture things and those sensibilities. We see early in the film that Billie has a bit of that too, when she's directing her mum to practice for a music video that she's doing. And in that scene, she tells him, she's directing her much, don't zoom, don't do anything those fucking bozo filmmakers do, and they're trying not to be boring. When did sort of you see that scene, and did that inform how you filmed the rest of the movie?
I never saw that scene. I never saw it until it was in the movie. Because it was archived. It was from Billie shot that scene. That scene is so hilarious, because there's just so much going on there. There's Billie really expressing her vision for what this video is going to be, and she knows what she wants. And that's something I always found really intriguing about her, is that every creative meeting, whether it had to do with her her sweatshirts that she sells, the designs on them, or it had to do with a storyboard of a video, she didn't just know what she wanted. I mean, she down to every single detail. She's a person of detail. And I don't know, I'm sort of glad I didn't see the scene, because I sort of just did my own thing. Thankfully she was, allowed me, and didn't really second guess anything that I was doing. She's a visionary. I mean, she ends up directing her own videos for good reason, because she knows that she can pull it off better than anyone else. So it's a great scene. That's a great scene though, because that really shows the beginning of her capabilities as a director, which I think is cool. And her dad's picking up dog poo in the background. I mean, it's classic.
So she wasn't giving you heaps of directions while the film was being made.
Directions, and I mean, RJ was my director, so he was.
I'm sure he was.
But she, what she did do was, she and I would figure out positions for me to be on stage. The end of the film is me following her up literally this sort of faux stairway up the side of Radio City Music Hall. No one ever walks up there. But in the sound check, Billie decided that she might want to finish Ocean Eyes, the song, on this stairway up. And she decided that she wanted me to come up there with her. Now, this is maybe the stairway is 3 feet wide at best, maybe. And I'm on, literally an easy rig with an Alexa Mini and my whole setup. And I find out when I'm up there that the wall that's behind, resting on the outside of the stairway, is actually a floating partition. It's not even a real wall. So we're headed up a good 2 to 2 stories, 2 to 3 stories. Yeah, maybe that's an exaggeration, but a few flights up, let's just put it. We were
Yeah.
easily 30 feet in the air. And I just had to make sure not to get in her way so she could do her thing. And so she directed me to where she wanted me to be. And that was great, you know? I mean, it was moments like that where it was a real collaboration. And I also feel like she felt like, okay, cool, you're listening to me and doing things that I want you to do and also makes me feel comfortable. And we're here to accommodate. We're not here to get in the way. We want to make sure she's still able to perform and do what she does best. So
I think with that scene, like from earlier in the film, and like the way you and RJ approached the film align, is she was sort of very focused on, we don't do things just to sort of like distract from not being boring. Like, it's we trust the work and we trust what we're doing. And Cinema Verite does sort of the same thing, where you're not wanting people to notice the filmmaking, you're just wanting people in that world.
Yeah, I mean, I'm RJ and I are big fans of intimacy. And a really interesting thing early on is when I met Billie for the first time, I have a tendency to kind of hang back. So we're already in these small rooms, we're in these green rooms or, tour rooms, whatever, that are maybe 20 by 20. But I wanted to hang back. I didn't want to be up in her face with a lens. And very early, like within maybe a week or two, I got feedback from her that she actually wanted me closer to her. And she's a fan of The Office. I don't know if you know this, but she loves The Office. And when she met with RJ the first time, he said, well, how do you envision this movie to be? And she said, like The Office. And, that was sort of what she imagined her documentary would feel like. And I mean, obviously it's more of an observational documentary. It's not The Office, but there are moments, I think, where she wanting me closer was her way of being like, I need to be able to see the camera at moments and give a nod or make eye contact with it, because that was her way of connecting to the audience, to people. Like there's a scene, there's several scenes, but one where they're talking about that song Zanny, and her, someone from her label is saying, well, what if, you end up, you're saying here, you're condoning, you're against drinking and drugs. And what if later on you decide to? And her mom kind of goes off about, well, she can't be her authentic self. And there's this whole kind of intense moment. And you could see right at the end of that scene, Billie looks right down the lens, right down the lens. And that was, to me, like, that's maybe the closest thing that it was to The Office, in the sense that she's like, I need to look at this camera right now and go, yes, this is my life. Can you believe that this is what I'm dealing with? Or when she's flirting with her boyfriend at her record release party, and she also like looks at the camera and kind of sticks her tongue out a little bit. And that's just sort of a moment of like, yes, look at me, here I am with this guy that I like,
Yeah.
So I like, that was her way of connecting. I think she wanted to connect.
I think it was like, I could be wrong about this, but in, one of the things where she's arguing about not wanting to write music or something earlier on in the film, she sort of walks in and then sees the cameras there, like, as well. Like, she just looks and does a slight double take, which is really very Office-y. Okay, to finish off, Jenna, if you could just in one or two sentences say, from spending so much time for her, what did you learn from spending all that time with Billie?
What did I learn? I mean, I learned a lot about the importance of having a subject that's willing to be vulnerable, and how important that is for intimacy. It really, like, I'm so grateful, and for her being so open with us, and for her family to be willing to let us in their world for over a year. I mean, it's profound, in this day and age, everything is so kind of protected and guarded, and like, it was never a moment of like, don't shoot, it was like, come on in, and here we are. This is what's happening right now. So I learned a lot about family. I learned a lot about how important it is to protect your child, whether they're, they're the biggest, rock star in the world or not. I would actually ask Billy's mom a lot of parental advice because I was like, gosh, she's amazing. Both she and Patrick are just these incredible parents that are right alongside her navigating, and we would literally witness a family having to let go of their child, just like any family parents would have to sort of let go and let them go, let them go out in the world. And she just so happened to be Billie Eilish, but it was to be there and witness that as it was unfolding really kind of, touched my heart. It informed me as a parent. I have younger children who eventually will be that age. And so, it was so much more beyond a movie about, this rising star. Yes, it was that, but it was also about life and family and love and all the things that, make life worth living, really. So.
Well, Jenna, thank you so much for talking with us today. All the best for the film on the upcoming awards circuit, and people can go to goldderby.com to watch other interviews with award contenders and make your own awards predictions. Thanks.
Thank you, Matt. Thank you for having me. I appreciate it.